So recently I ended up going to the theatre to watch Cluedo 2, which is a great stage show, and I highly recommend it if you get the chance to watch it. It even features last year's Strickland dancing champion Ellie Leach as one of the characters within the show. So go and have a watch of it, you'll like it. But from there, it also triggered me into going back to rewatch one of my personal favourite Doctor Who episodes, 2008's Series 4, Episode 7, The Unicorn and the Wasp. Now, this is an episode that I've always enjoyed. And it's got a load of kind of small details or fun facts in here that you may know, you may not. So I thought today I'd go through and give you a selection of small fun facts about Doctor Who, Series 4, Episode 7, The Unicorn and the Wasp from 2008. If you know these facts already, then just enjoy them. If you don't know these facts, well, now you're learning something. Now, to start off with, this episode was actually originally bookended with an elderly Agatha in a retirement home in 1976, kind of remembering the events that happened to her 50 years ago, kind of trying to recall what happened. And Agatha in these scenes was to be played by Daphne Oxenford. However, these scenes got removed during editing because Russell T Davies, the head show writer, didn't really like how they placed the entire episode into the past tense. He kind of felt it removed all urgency from the episode. So these scenes were removed, and it was a great shame because the actors were great actors. It was also eventually Daphne Oxenford's final role before her death. Now, if you watch very early on in the episode, you can actually spot a sneaky little cameo. David Tennant's father, Alexander MacDonald, makes a silent cameo as a footman at the start of the episode. Apparently he was visiting his son on set when they came up to him and asked, "Listen, can you put on this suit and just pretend to be a footman for a few minutes?" He was like, "Yeah, alright." Which, I love how Doctor Who manages to mix in family like that. Now, one of the characters in this episode, Sir Hugh Kirbishley, is played by Christopher Benjamin, and he is actually a returning Doctor Who actor. He previously appeared in 1970's Inferno, where he played scientist Sir Keith Gold. That wasn't his only appearance, though, as he would later appear in the fourth Doctor serial, The Talons of Weng Chiang, in 1977, where he played Henry Gordon Jago, and he would make subsequent appearances in Doctor Who Big Finish audio productions as Jago in the kind of spin-off Big Finish dramas based around Jago and Lightfoot. Now, another actress you can see pop up in this particular episode is Felicity Jones, and this might come as a bit of a surprise because she would later go on to have a very good career. In this episode, she plays one of the partygoers, Rowena Redmond, who, spoiler alert, is eventually revealed to be the jewel thief, the Unicorn. However, she would later appear in 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where she plays Felicia Hardy, a secretary at Oscorp. Now, Felicia Hardy in the comics would eventually become the anti-heroine Black Cat. And she would also appear as the star in Rogue One, a Star Wars story in 2016, playing the main character, Jyn Erso. Now, it's fairly obvious from the opening of this particular story that a lot of this was based around the board game Cluedo, or as it's known in America, Clue. I mean, the start of the episode has a character, Professor Peach, being killed in the library with the lead piping. Yeah, this borrows heavily from Clue. However, one thing I didn't know until recently was that quite a few of the characters are actually based on characters within the game Cluedo. I mean, of course, Professor Peach is obviously supposed to be Professor Plum. Lady Edison was apparently built to resemble Mrs. Peacock, who was always my choice of character whenever I played Cluedo. Hugh Kirbishley was supposed to be based on Colonel Mustard. Arnold Golightly was the Reverend Green. Rowena Redmond as the good Miss Scarlet. And Mrs. Chandrakala was apparently supposed to be loosely based around Mrs. White. Honestly, I knew that this episode had Cluedo influences. I didn't know that they were supposed to resemble those characters. The only one I noticed, Professor Peach. But anyway. Now, throughout this episode, Russell T Davies and the episode's writer, Gareth Roberts, they set themselves a challenge to see how many Agatha Christie book titles they could weave into the dialogue and the narrative. And to be honest, the whole episode is a whole host of Agatha Christie references, or reference just murder mysteries in general. But looking at the dialogue alone, you can find references to Why Didn't They Ask Evans, The Body in the Library, Murder on the Orient Express, The Secret Adversary, N or M, Nemesis, Cat Among the Pigeons, Dead Man's Folly, They Do It With Mirrors, An Appointment with Death, Sparkling Cyanide, Cards on the Table, Taken at the Flood, Death Comes at the End, Murder at the Vicarage, Crooked House, and The Moving Finger. And there are also other references open in the episode to The Murder of Roger Ackroyd and Death in the Clouds. Now, one thing that did bother me a little when I found out later on is that there's a slight historical inaccuracy about halfway through the episode. And yes, I know Doctor Who has never been 100% historically accurate. And hell, we know that Agatha Christie didn't go missing because of a giant wasp. At least we think not. Who's to say? But the one historical inaccuracy that did bug me a little later on once I found out a bit of history was the teddy bear in Lady Edison's room. Basically, to remind you, when Donna is kind of searching through the house and kind of investigating the suspect's rooms, she finds one room locked that eventually Greaves opens up for her. He says that the room has been undisturbed for 40 years after Lady Edison returned home with malaria. We found out later in the episode that she had actually fallen pregnant in India and had confined herself to the house for 6 months until she had given birth. Now, this is all said to have happened 40 years ago, and the episode in question takes place in 1926. 40 years ago would have been 1886. The teddy bear was invented in 1903. Yeah, I know, that doesn't quite add up, but hey, we'll allow them to make a small slip-up every now and again. And the last small fun fact you may or may not know about the Unicorn and the Wasp, although this is really a fact about another episode, was that the Vespiform, or a Vespiform, was actually supposed to appear again later on in Series 4. The original plan for the Shadow Proclamation, who were due to appear in The Stolen Earth, was that they would be made up of a load of different kind of alien creatures and characters whom the Doctor had met over the past few series. The Shadow Proclamation was set to include not only the Judoon, but also the Slitheen, along with a child Slitheen, who was supposed to be, I think, blonde fell Foch Pasamere Day Slitheen, in the form of Margaret Blaine. The Krillitanes, also several baby and one adult adipose, a Cyberman, a Vespiform, and Alonzo Frame, played once again by Russell Tovey. However, because of the amount of CGI that would have been needed to bring most of these characters into the fray, it proved to be a little too expensive, so they decided to cut back on the Shadow Proclamation, cut them down to the Judoon and a few humanoid officers along the way. So, sadly, we never got a chance to see the Shadow Proclamation in all its glory that they had originally planned. But it would have been nice to see them. Anyway, there you go, a small selection of fun facts about one of my favourite Doctor Who episodes, The Unicorn and the Wasp. What are your thoughts on this episode? Let us know down below. Anyway, until next time, see ya.